So in 6.2, we're going to find percent of a number again, but we're going to do problems that are better off using decimals. So 50% to a decimal in a fraction. All right, so we learned a shortcut for this, right? You move the decimal twice and you get 0.5, and then that 0.5 is 5/10, but that simplifies to 1/2. We're going to be using decimals today. So half of 16, right? We went over yesterday, half of 16 is 8. What is 0.5 times 16? Well, if 0.5 and a half are equal, this should have the same answer, 8. Let's see that. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is 3. You don't bring the decimal down, you count one number to the right of a decimal, right? There's no numbers up there. You move it once, and this 8.0 is 8. So what is 0.5 of 16? 8. What is 50% of 16? 8. So you can use decimals to do percents. Now, it's an easy problem involving a tenth, some version of tenths, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, or 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. Any of those, you're probably going to be faster using the fraction method that we did yesterday. But for other things, other percents, the decimal method probably is easier. Right? Yesterday we did half of 16 that way. Today we would do it that way, which is a little slower, but you still get the same answer. All right, so we're going to use decimals. You're required to use decimals today just to practice that. After today, you will have choice whether you like fractions better or decimals better. You really need to be good at this. You should be using the fastest method depending on the situation. All right, so 50% of 30, since 50% is 0.5, you're just doing 30 times 0.5. 5 times 0, 5 times 3 is 15. One number to the right of a decimal point, right? Half of 30 is 15. 30 times 0.5 is 15. 50% of 23. See, now 50% of even numbers is way easier to do in your head, but 23 is an odd number. What that means is you're going to get a 0.5 in your answer. Anytime you find half of an odd number, you're going to get a 0.5 in your answer. Let's see that. 5 times 3 is 15. There's that 5. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 1 is 11. And so move the decimal once, and it's 11.5. Right? Which you could still do in your head, because half of 22, right? Half of 22 is 11. So half of 23 is 11.5, or 11.5. 25% of 70. Now, again, finding, right, you could do it this way, but 4 doesn't go nicely into 70. So that's a problem. So the decimal method becomes more attractive. When this starts to have more difficulty, then I'll do it with decimals. 5 times 0 is, and you can put either one up top, doesn't matter. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 7 is 35. Step over. 2 times 0. 2 times 7 is 14. Move the decimal twice, and 25% of 70 is 7, and we're not going to keep that extra 0, 17.5. If it was money, we'd keep that extra 0 and say $17.50. Find 8% of 62. Again, now 8% is 8 out of 100, and we could do it that way. But 162, yes, you could simplify that. Now, 8% is not 8, it's 0.08, right? Let's make sure we understand that. 80% is the one that's 0.8. 8% is, move it twice, is the shortcut, 0.08. So we're going to multiply by 0.08. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 6 is 48. Plus 1 is 49. We just get a row of zeros, right? So you step over, but you still get a row of zeros. We don't need that. 6, 9, 4. Move the decimal twice. 1, 2, because there's two numbers to the right of a decimal, and this is 4.96. And in that case, the decimal method is way easier than the fraction method. All right, so 70% of 32, it's 32 times 0.7. 22, move the decimal once, it's 22.4. 6% of 130, move the decimal twice, 0.06 we multiply by. 6 times 0 is 0. I know the next problem came up, but 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. You get a row of zeros next. We don't need that. Move it twice. 7.8. 100% of 43. Now remember, 100% is 1. When you use the decimal twice, move the decimal twice, you get 1.00, which is 1. So this is 43 times 1. Why would you need to do that? But 43 times 1 is 43. Now, for problems like this, especially, well, both of these at the top, the decimal method is definitely the way to go. But please, there are plenty of times where the decimal method isn't the greatest, especially if you don't have a piece of paper. If you're doing things in your head, this is hard to do in your head, whereas the fraction method is much easier when you don't have a piece of paper and the numbers work out. 150% of 200. So we move the decimal twice, and it's 200 times 1.5. So 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 2 is 10. Step over 1 times 0, 1 times 0, 1 times 2. We get all of that. Move the decimal once. And that makes sense. 300, right? 100% of 200 is 200. And then an extra 50%, an extra half of it. So half of it, an extra half of it would be an extra 100. So for a total of 300. 15% of 200. Now, so we're going to multiply by 0.15. 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 2 is 10. Step over 0, 0, 2. And we get seemingly the same answer, but you have 2 decimals over, and it's 30. Right? 10% of 200 would be 20. So we are adding an extra 5%. Well, if 10% is 20, an extra 5% is 10. You add them together, it's 30. You can do 15% in your head this way. If you can do the 10% in your head, then take half of it and add it to it, and you can get the 15%. 300% is literally just 200 times 3. No decimal point, it's just 600. Dennis made 87.5% of his shots during a basketball. If he took 32 shots, how many did he make? All right, so we're going to move the decimal twice. Now notice here, this time, I'm going to put the 0.875 up top. Why? Because it has more digits. By the way, you can multiply this way. You get 3 rows, and it's more likely to make a mistake. But if you do it correctly, you get the correct answer. But typically, we put the one with more digits on the top. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. Step over. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 2 is 26. 0, 10. That's another 10. There's an 8 and a 2. And we have 1, 2, 3 moves of the decimal point. Right? We better get a whole number, right? Because you can't make 0.3 of a shot, right? I don't know what that would be. So 87.5% of 32 is he made 32. It means he missed 4, right? 32 minus 28. All right, let's practice. All right, so 90 times 0.05 is 4.5. And that makes sense. 10% of 90 is 9. We need half of that, 5%, 4.5. 12% of 60, 2 times 0, 2 times 6 is 12. 1 times 0, 1 times 6. Move the decimal twice, 7.2. Right? 10% would be 6. So 12% better be a little bit more than 6, and it is 7.2. 50% of 45, so it's 45. It's an odd number, and we're finding half of it. So we're going to get a 0.5 in our answer, and we do, 22.5. 150% of 60, 60 times 1.5. 5 times 0, 5 times 6 is 30. Step over, 1 times 0, 1 times 6. Move the decimal once, right? 100% of 60 would be 60. An extra 50% would get us up to 90. 150% of 60 is 90. 52% of students said they like soccer better than baseball. 400 students, right? You're not going to do 52% of 400 easily in your head, but you could. 50% is 200, right? We better get an answer a little bit more than 200. 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 4 is 8. Step over. 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 4 is 20. Oh, look at that. And we move the decimal twice. And it's a word problem, so it's 208 students liked soccer. Good luck on the homework.